Hello friends! I hope that you all are doing very, very, very well. If you clicked on this video, that means you're connecting with the energies of today's reading, which is quite a special one, as we have both seasonal messages from the spirit of winter being filmed the day before the new moon in Capricorn. So it feels like quite a powerful combination in terms of resting, wintering, but also creating strong structures of legacy and awakening for the season ahead. We will be using my beloved Neo Tarot deck today to pull messages and guidance from the spirit of winter. And we will also finish out this reading with some cards from this brand new deck that I got for Christmas. My lovely friend Naz, or Anastasia, got it for me for Christmas. And it is this beautiful seashell oracle. And the cards in here are absolutely stunning. I feel that whatever comes through today will be quite pertinent and resonant for the entire reading as a whole. So if all sounds good to you, let's take a deep breath together. Inhaling in and exhaling. And let's pull some cards and let's get started. What are the messages that the spirit of winter wants to impart upon us today? What some messages from the spirit of winter? What does the spirit of winter want to tell us? So we have the Five of Swords coming out with the Devil and the Knight of Wands in the reverse. So it feels like there is a feeling of clashing a little bit. The Five of Swords really alludes to a type of mental, logical, even relational or communicative struggle. We can see this figure here holding the Five of Swords, and it seems as if they have won a battle between themselves and this other figure, the loser who was walking away. And yet this figure here doesn't quite seem to be happy or content or very celebratory in their win. It might have been a struggle that had been ongoing for some time, is kind of what I'm hearing, and perhaps was indeed quite necessary, but at the same time, it doesn't necessarily feel good. It doesn't feel joyous or victorious now that this battle has been kind of finalized and become a bit more resolved. The devil coming out is quite interesting in this context because we can see that there is this idea of clinging. There is this idea of limitations, the things that really shackle us and have us intertwined, right? We have these two figures together here, and their hair is actually, these braids are what connect them to the devil, to this type of greed, hatred, delusion, and this type of Mara, we would say, in the Buddhist world. Mara that really deludes us from our wholesomeness, that distracts us from our good qualities and our spiritual study. And so keeping this in mind with the context of the Five of Swords, it feels that there has been an overcoming, and I'm hearing that if this overcoming hasn't quite yet come into fruition, this overcoming is happening over the period of this winter. This overcoming is happening from the course of this season, perhaps even over the next 2 weeks, because we have the full moon here and the new moon is tomorrow. So from whenever you're watching this, in the next 2 weeks, there could be a strong resolution of this type of imbalance. I feel a lot of hesitation just holding these two together, and I also am feeling kind of quite unsure, which is not often a feeling that I get during readings, kind of. There is a sense really of feeling that there needs to be clarity, and that clarity eventually will come forward. Clarity eventually will act as a release of the intensity of the situation. But right now, the spirit of winter and the spirit of the season is asking you to not take any very specific, drastic steps. With the Knight of Wands in the reverse, this is not a sign to move forward hastily. It's not a sign to confront somebody or have a very intensive emotion at the forefront of handling the situation. Whatever these two might be, whether it is actually you and another person, if it is you and your own mental limitations, belief systems, you and relatives, I'm hearing as well. Whatever the case might be, the Knight of Wands wants to remind you here in the reverse that rushing to find a solution and impatience are not the correct remedies for this situation. And that in fact, we might really want to go slow. We might really want to take some time to reflect and feel into the exact devil energy that is appearing. We might really want to feel into how perhaps we give into our limiting belief systems, our delusional thought processes, and even acting on very impulsive sense desires. I'm drawn to the fact that the devil figure here has one hand pointing to the red sun, and the red sun is clearly also in this Knight of Wands. It almost feels like the devil, like this spirit, is taunting you and asking you, you know, like maybe you should. Why don't you just act on impulse? Why don't you just go for it? Why don't you just move forward with intensity, with no inhibition at all, and just go for it? When in fact, I think this situation needs a little bit more slowness. The situation needs a little bit more tenderness and tact. Sensibility and wit also is coming to my mind. I want to pull a few more cards and see if there's any specific guidance for this situation. Is there any remedy for this season? Okay. So we have the Nine of Pentacles in the reversed, and we have the Ten of Swords. So the phrase when I see these two together that comes to my mind is something that a Buddhist monk told me many years ago when I asked him, how come some people love to ruminate in their suffering, right? Like sometimes when we have reached a degree of mental illness, and I myself have definitely been guilty of this in the past, we relish in that feeling of whether that's deprecation, like self-deprecation, or self-hurt, self-harm, when we really have become so deluded in our mental health that we take this kind of sick obsession with these things that harm us. I remember asking that bhikkhu, that monk, why are some people like this, or why is it that the mind becomes like this over time? And he said, I'll never forget this phrase. It truly unlocked something in my mind. And that sentence is, people use suffering to affirm their own ego. People will use suffering to affirm their own ego. And this is exactly that energy. The Nine of Pentacles in the reverse is not feeling this abundance. It's not feeling this beautiful, amazing scenery, amazing fortune and wealth, resources, security that is all around. There's this beautiful little birdie, and this figure is so happy and joyous, and yet in the Nine of Pentacles, in the reverse, it feels as if everything is not like that at all. Everything is not a paradise. Everything is awful and tumultuous, and it certainly is when we are in this Ten of Swords energy, when we truly have, in a way, given up on getting better at any point in time. The Ten of Swords is having extreme defeat and letting our mental illness, letting delusional thoughts, letting ego, afflictions, and hurt and harm take precedent over our clarity of mind. We have this full moon that is out here illuminating our harmful ways of acting and being, and yet this person does not want and cannot, literally cannot, even get up to look at the light, cannot even arise for a moment because they're so filled and held down by their dark perception of self. Just a very strong phrasing that is quite uncommon for me to use in a reading, but that's what's coming forward. A dark perception of self. And this is very intense. The spirit of winter and this season, I really think, especially with the new moon in Capricorn at play, this is such a strong invitation to really redefine and snap out of this type of depressive loop thinking, this type of intensive shackle that the devil has us in. And it cannot be remedied through sheer brute force of will. It cannot. This type of situation can only be remedied through the development, I see now, the development and the practice of clarity, the practice of perhaps setting boundaries, the practice of having to fight the battle, actually. And this person, as I was saying at the beginning, this person is not happy about it. This person is not, it doesn't feel victorious in this moment, and it might feel quite begrudging. It might feel like you have to pull at pins and needles in order to even fathom creating this battle. But it is a battle that must be overcome. It must be done, and it must be won. This figure here laying down, it feels very similar to this figure that is walking away. And this is the championed self that is arising slowly, pulling the swords one by one out of the body, out of the mind. And it is not a process that happens overnight. This is a process that will be happening over the course of this season again and again and again. It is not going to be easy. I think that if anything, it might feel quite unnatural. It will feel like we're having this tug of war, this back and forth. It will feel like this type of consistent friction and struggle. But the Nine of Pentacles in the reverse is here to remind you that this prosperity and this goodness in actuality is already here. This prosperity, this type of peace and joyousness in actuality is all around you. It can be unlocked. It can be accessed at any point in time. However, it requires the diligence and the intensive self-reflection to undo the work of the devil, to undo the shackles and the illusions of Mara that exist. But once this work has been done, I think once the season comes to an end, once spring, this feels very, very spring, has arrived, there will be a clearer sense of prosperity, comfort, and security. That's what I'm hearing. Prosperity, comfort, and security. How beautiful would that be? I'm going to pull a few cards from the Seashell Oracle to close out this reading. See if there is any other additional guidance or messages that the new moon or the season, the spirit of the season, want to impart upon you, upon us today. Okay, is there any last guidance for us here today? Is there any last guidance here for us today? We have 3 cards here. We have Coral with support, protection, and sensitivity. I love this one as the first oracle card to come out because it is really reminding you that you do have support. There is this type of protection and guidance around you. I'm really getting the sense that there are people who are out there to take care of you, and when things really feel very stark, like things feel very, very bleak and upset, reach out to resources, reach out to support systems, reach out to communities, to people, to friends, and to family, because they are there to take care of you. They are there to help support you, for you to lean on, and to remind you that it is okay. It's okay to be sensitive. It's all right to have feelings. It's all right to have emotions and to go through good days and bad days. It's very, very normal. Coral, especially in recent years, is something that as a community, oceanic communities have really been working on reviving and working hard to restore, because a lot of coral reefs are dying due to just global issues. We'll put it like that. And through the very intensive efforts of community and people coming together, coral reefs have been reviving very slowly. And so I think this is definitely a very strong sense of just leaning and knowing that there are people pour out there for you. It's okay. It's okay to need extra resources sometimes. Again, it's okay to be sensitive, have feelings, have emotions. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with you or your feelings at all. It is just about managing them, which makes sense that we have these two coming out, I think. We have plankton with multitudes, invisibility, and collective. And I am thinking of SpongeBob, which is so interesting. It's not a reference that I often use, but maybe you really love SpongeBob, or maybe that's just a show that feels resonant for you. I want to read to you just a mini excerpt from the guidebook here. So plankton is about multitudes, invisibility, and collective. Every night, so many microscopic zooplankton swim up from the deep to feed near the surface that their migration can be observed from space. The individual may be invisible, but the collective is impactful. So in times when you are feeling invisible, when you feel like you are in the deep, I think that is really what coral is here to remind together. It's to have that community, to remember that the collective is important and it's a part of who we are as beings on this planet. It is not just about us. It is not just about us as the main character. It's only my life. Nobody else matters. Nothing else matters. In fact, I think what will really help to start loosening up this intensity is to really focus on the fact that we are just one little being, but we are one of many. We are one of many, and we live in an ecosystem that thrives off of the interconnectedness and support of multiple different beings, a vast majority of very, very different beings. And the last oracle card for today is Surfer with excitement, passion, and skill, which I love. I feel like this is such a beautiful and positive card to end on. It is very reminiscent of the Knight of Pentacles, the type of springness. I love that. They both have this peachy color. If this is spring, this really is reminding me of summer. And I think the Surfer card is really out to remind you that there are things that are worth having passion about. There are things that you are good at. There are things that you have technical prowess. And even if you are just one little being in a huge, huge wave of life, of an industry, of a situation, the surfer is someone who knows how to ride the waves the best that they can, but when the waves get them down and they get beat up, that's totally okay. It's not about having the perfection to control the tide. In fact, it's just about knowing how to ride it, knowing how to balance all the different levels of the ups and downs, but still retaining that excitement, still retaining that passion, and knowing that That's the beauty of it all. And I'll close out by reading the guidebook excerpt. Surfer with excitement, passion, skill. Watching the currents and the breaks with an eye on the weather, the surfer learns to ride wildness to glory, know when to seize the wave and when to let it wash over you. These seasonal readings never cease to fascinate me. They truly are so interesting every single time that I sit down to film one. I hope that this reading could gift you a bit of hope, some peace, some promise of brighter days, some goodness for the future. But thank you so much for letting me read for you. Feel free to let me know if this resonated or not. I would absolutely love to know. And thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you and your time and your energy so very much. And I hope you have a lovely, lovely rest of your day or night, wherever you are. And I will see you all in the next one.